Hello, I'm Dr. Craig Childress. I'm a clinical psychologist in Pasadena, California. I specialize in working with children and families around issues of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, parent-child relationship problems, angry, oppositional, defiant children, marital problems, things like that. In this video series, I've been discussing a particular type of parent-child relationship problem that I refer to as a parental alienation dynamic. In this set of video segments, I'm going to be discussing the origins of the parental alienation dynamic in a process that's referred to as the transgenerational transmission of trauma, which is an early childhood conceptualization having to do with the transfer of relationship patterns across generations. Now, before I begin the discussion of the transgenerational transmission of trauma related to the alienation dynamic, I want to give a little bit of background foundation regarding how the brain grows and develops and how the brain works. It's not complicated, but it serves as sort of a foundational base by which we can understand how these relationship patterns are being transferred from the early childhood experiences of the alienating parent to the current relationship patterns with the targeted parent and the child. Now, the brain develops based on the principle of we build what we use. Every time we use a brain system, that brain system becomes more sensitive, it becomes stronger, becomes more efficient. Hebb, who is one of the leading figures in the field of neurodevelopment of the brain, referred to this as neurons that fire together, wire together. A related concept is the concept of canalization of brain networks. And this refers to a metaphor having to do with a dirt hillside when it starts to rain. And that first raindrop that falls can take any direction down the hillside. But when it does, it takes a little bit of dirt with it, so that the second raindrop will tend to follow the pathway of the first raindrop. Third raindrop will follow the pathway of the other two. And over the course of time, a channel or canal develops on the hillside down which the water flows. The brain operates on the same principle. It's called canalization, like canals, where when we use a brain system or a set of brain networks in association with each other, that there are structural and chemical changes that take place within that system that makes it more likely to be used the next time around. And so you develop these canals or channels or brain networks through use-dependent processes. It's canalization of brain networks. Now, right now, there are three processes by which this occurs, at least three processes that we currently understand. More may be developed as we get greater understanding of brain development. The first is called long-term potentiation, or LTP. It's been studied a lot with memory consolidation. And what this involves is that when we use a brain system, there are structural and chemical changes that take place in the brain cells that are part of that system to make them more likely to fire in the future. So the system, when we use it, becomes more sensitive. The second process by which we canalize these brain networks is called synaptogenesis. And synapses are the connections between brain cells. Genesis means growth, so synaptogenesis means the growth of connections. And when we use a brain system, the brain cells actually develop and grow more connections, more synapses within that used system. And so the system becomes stronger. So when we use a brain system, it becomes more sensitive, it becomes stronger. In addition, there's a process called use-dependent myelination that makes the system more efficient. And what this involves is, let's say we have a brain cell here, and so this is your cell body, and there's this what's called an axon that leads to the next brain cell. There's a fatty covering called myelin that covers this axon, and what the myelin does is it speeds up the transmission of the impulse down the brain cell. And this myelin sheath grows more rapidly in brain cells that are being used. So when we use a brain system, it becomes more sensitive, it becomes stronger, it becomes more efficient. We build what we use. Now, this process of building what we use is going to become important when we look at how the relationship patterns of the alienating parent with their own parent are set into place within the within the brain systems, the relationship systems of the alienating parent. And it involves the instantiation or the imprinting of trauma into the brain of the alienating parent as a child. And so these trauma networks that were placed in the brain networks in early childhood of the alienating parent will reactivate in the current setting. And I'll describe how that process takes place.